Guten Tag und herzlich willkommen zur Auftaktveranstaltung Push Boundaries, das neue Creative Europe Programm. Ich bin Lea Stöber und leite den Creative Europe Desk Kultur in Bonn in Deutschland. Und wir sind damit eins von 9 Desks, das den heutigen Tag veranstaltet und für Sie organisiert hat. Wer was wie genau jetzt heute hintersteckt und was wir Ihnen präsentieren, dazu kommen wir dann später nochmal, weil ich möchte jetzt mit Ihnen erst einmal ein bisschen ein kleines Warm-up machen und Sie auf die Veranstaltung vorbereiten. Genau, wie Sie wahrscheinlich schon genutzt haben, und das ist sozusagen schon die erste Info, wir benutzen Zoom Webinar. Das heißt, Sie können im Moment mich sehen, aber Sie können die anderen Teilnehmenden nicht sehen. Das Video ist von den anderen Teilnehmenden ausgeschaltet und Sie sehen immer die SprecherInnen. Genau, und was zur heutigen Veranstaltung auch dazu gehört, und Sie haben es gerade schon gesehen, sind die Untertitel. Die Untertitel werden jetzt im Laufe der Veranstaltung die ganze Zeit mitlaufen, das heißt bis 15:30 Uhr. Sie können die Untertitel aktivieren, indem Sie auf, wie das hier auch angezeigt ist, auf Untertitel klicken und dort Untertitel einblenden oder Untertitel ausblenden einschalten. Die Untertitel folgen der gesprochenen Sprache, das heißt, laufen auf Englisch oder auf Deutsch, denn wir sind ja heute auch auf beiden Sprachen unterwegs. Genau, der Chat ist auch aktiviert, den können Sie auch nutzen. Wir bitten Sie aber ganz herzlich, den Chat nur für organisatorische oder technische Fragen zu nutzen. Also wenn irgendwas nicht funktioniert oder Sie auch gerade das mit den Untertiteln noch nicht gefunden haben, schreiben Sie gerne nochmal in den Chat. Meine KollegInnen werden darüber auch noch zwischendurch einige Informationen an Sie mitteilen. Genau, das Wichtige ist aber, dass wir alle inhaltlichen Dinge nicht über den Chat klären wollen und auch über die Funktion Handheben. Auch die werden wir heute nicht nutzen, sondern wir nutzen Slido. Slido ist ein Tool, das wahrscheinlich schon einige von Ihnen kennen, vergleichbar mit Mentimeter. Und das wollen wir jetzt direkt einmal mit Ihnen üben sozusagen. Und zwar können Sie Slido auf 2 Wege erreichen. Und zwar einmal können Sie jetzt Ihr Smartphone nehmen, was wahrscheinlich bei den meisten von Ihnen neben dem Computer liegt. Und Sie scannen mit dem Smartphone den QR-Code, den Sie hier sehen. Wenn Sie gerade das Handy nicht nutzen wollen oder können, machen Sie einfach einen Browser auf, gehen Sie auf slido.com und dann gibt es auf slido.com auf der Website so ein kleines Feld. Da können Sie #Creative Europe eingehen. Also genauso, wie Sie das hier sehen. Ich mache das jetzt auch einfach mal parallel. Ich nehme also mein Handy. Ich mache es da bei mir auch über den Firefox. Scanne einmal Slido, super, und komme auf die Slido-Seite, da wo Sie jetzt auch alle gelandet sind. Genau, und was Slido kann, das zeigen wir Ihnen jetzt. Und zwar haben wir eine erste Frage an Sie. Und zwar sehe ich jetzt schon, wir haben, wow, jetzt gerade 500 Teilnehmende schon. Das ist natürlich super. Wir wollen wissen, woher kommen Sie? Kommen Sie aus Deutschland, Österreich, Luxemburg oder auch von einem anderen Ort? Denn das ist ja heute eine Kooperationsveranstaltung zwischen den Desks aus den 3 Ländern. Wir wollen damit vor allen Dingen die deutschsprachige Community in Europa erreichen. Das ist natürlich in den 3 Ländern der Fall, aber auch darüber hinaus. Und wow, ich sehe schon 297, 303 Antworten. Sie sind also auf jeden Fall schon tüchtig unterwegs auf Slido. Das klappt ja also schon mal ganz gut. Sehr schön. Ich warte noch einen kurzen Moment, um auch noch den anderen 200 Teilnehmenden eine Chance zu geben, zu antworten. Okay, ja, ich sehe auf jeden Fall, wie soll ich sagen, eine starke Präsenz aus Deutschland und wir freuen uns über alle Teilnehmenden, die von überall zuschalten. Und damit möchte ich auch direkt zur zweiten Frage übergehen, weil uns interessiert natürlich nicht nur, wo kommen Sie her jetzt geografisch, sondern aus welcher Branche kommen Sie? Das Programm Kreatives Europa ist ja das Förderprogramm für den die audiovisuellen Branchen, aber auch den Kultur- und Kreativsektor. Insofern ist die zweite Frage, wo verorten Sie sich? Kommen Sie aus dem Filmbereich, aus welchen Teilen, aus dem Kultursektor? Das wollen wir von Ihnen wissen. Okay, Kultur ist auf jeden Fall schon groß vertreten. Das freut mich natürlich als Teil des Kulturdesks. Produzentinnen sind auch beteiligt. Wow, das geht jetzt schnell. Da werde ich jetzt nicht alles nachfassen können. Aber ich sehe auf jeden Fall eine große Vielfalt Musikwirtschaft, Filmproduktion wird auch immer größer. Kulturvereine, weitere Desks, das ist schön. Wahrscheinlich werden wir auch einige KollegInnen noch hier im Publikum haben. Und ja, sehr schön. Also als größtes schon mal Filmproduktion und Kultur. Ich würde sagen, damit ist unsere Pressearbeit insofern schon mal gut gelaufen, als dass wir die beiden großen Sektoren oder Branchen angesprochen haben, die durch dieses Programm auch angesprochen werden. Genau, und Sie geben jetzt noch weiter fleißig ein. Das Schöne ist, dass unser Programm eben sich an Sie alle richten wird und zu dem Inhaltlichen kommen wir dann ja auch gleich schon. Bevor wir damit einsteigen, noch eine letzte Frage an Sie über Slido. Ich sehe schon, das klappt sehr gut. Und unsere Frage ist jetzt, was sind Ihre Wünsche oder Erwartungen an das neue Creative Europe Programm? Und da würde ich Sie auch wieder bitten, Ihre Erwartungen, Ihre Wünsche, Träume, Hoffnungen, will ich mal sagen, einzugeben und uns mitzuteilen, worauf Sie warten, worauf Sie hoffen. Cash, okay, Geld. Es ist ein Förderprogramm, insofern ist das auf jeden Fall eine berechtigte Hoffnung. Das würde ich ganz klar so sagen. Vereinfachung, ja, das ist natürlich auch immer ein großes Thema. Ich muss sagen, meine persönliche Erwartung ist, dass es jetzt bald losgehen wird. Und da stehen die Vorzeichen ja auch gut. Dazu werden wir auf jeden Fall auch einiges erfahren. Nachhaltige Unterstützung, Infos zu den ersten Calls, das ist was wir natürlich heute auch versuchen, soweit es geht, schon abzudecken. Innovation, Vernetzung, Förderung, ja, das sind auf jeden Fall die Schlagwörter für das Programm. Ich lasse das jetzt noch mal einen Moment laufen. Wir haben jetzt so 200, fast 300 Rückmeldungen, noch so ein bisschen Ihnen einen Moment zu geben. Diversity fördern, auch ein wichtiger Punkt. Da werden wir auf jeden Fall auch noch was von den beiden Leiterinnen des Programms hören, welche, inwiefern und wo welche Diversity gefördert wird. Gut, ich habe das Gefühl, unser erstes Ziel ist erreicht. Sie nutzen alle gerade sehr begeistert Slido, das klappt schon mal gut. Und das jetzt bitte auch nicht vergessen, denn Slido werden wir jetzt im Laufe der nächsten, so 90 Minuten weiter nutzen. Alle Fragen, die Sie inhaltlich stellen wollen an unsere ReferentInnen, stellen Sie gleich über Slido. Sie werden dann da ein Feld finden, wo Sie Q&A eingeben können, also wo Sie wirklich Ihre Frage eingeben können, von wann ist der nächste Call zu den Kooperationsprojekten zu, wo wird eigentlich wie Diversity gefördert, also sozusagen alle Dimensionen, die Sie abfragen wollen, können Sie dann da gleich eingeben. Aber bevor wir damit starten, nur noch ein ganz paar Hinweise. Das zu den Untertiteln habe ich gerade schon angesagt, einfach auch noch mal der Hinweis für alle, die später gekommen sind. Sie können die Untertitel einschalten und sich die ganze Veranstaltung untertiteln lassen. Wir zeichnen diese Veranstaltung auf, also alles, was von jetzt an bis 15:30 Uhr passiert und werden dann diese Aufzeichnung über unsere Social-Media-Kanäle verbreiten. Sie können also alles nochmal nachgucken, wenn Sie wollen. Und ich würde sagen, damit sind Sie und wir jetzt bestens gerüstet für die nächsten 1,5 Stunden. Und damit kann ich eigentlich nur noch abgeben. Und ich habe ja gerade schon gesagt, es soll auch darum gehen, wer steckt eigentlich hinter diesem Event, wer hat es organisiert. Und damit übergebe ich jetzt gleich an meine KollegInnen aus den verschiedenen Desks, aber sage vor allen Dingen erstmal an die Technik, Film ab.
Guten Tag. Herzlich willkommen zu unserer Infosession zum Start des neuen Creative Europe Programms. Toll, dass wir so viele sind heute. A very warm welcome also to our guests and speakers from the European Commission, Barbara Gessler, Lucía Recalde and Marijn Döbestein. Push boundaries, Grenzen überwinden. Das ist das Motto des neuen Programms. Wir haben uns das zu Herzen genommen. Und deshalb erleben Sie heute eine gemeinsame Veranstaltung der Creative Europe Desks Kultur und Media in Deutschland, Österreich und Luxemburg. Mein Name ist Ingeborg Degner und ich darf Sie begrüßen im Namen der Creative Europe Desks in Deutschland.
Herzlich willkommen aus Österreich. Mein Name ist Elisabeth Bacher und ich begrüße Sie im Namen des Creative Europe Desk Austria. Diese internationale Veranstaltung ist eine Premiere. Wir wollen Ihnen gemeinsam die neuen Förderprogramme für Kultur und Media vorstellen und den Fragen nachgehen, was bleibt, was ändert sich und was ist neu. Gleich zu Beginn erhalten Sie aus erster Hand Informationen zur neuen Struktur des Programms und zu den Prioritäten von Creative Europe. Danach steht Cross-Sectoral, der spartenübergreifende Bereich am Programm, mit den neuen Förderschienen Creative Innovation Lab und News Media.
Hallo und bienvenue auch aus Luxemburg. Ich bin Carol Kremer und begrüße Sie im Namen des Creative Europe Desk Luxemburg. Im Anschluss an den allgemeinen Teil möchten wir Sie nach einer kurzen Pause dann in einer unserer 4 branchenspezifischen Fokus-Sessions wieder treffen. Da gibt es eine für Kultur und 3 für Media. In diesen Fokus-Sessions werden die Desks die Hauptförderbereiche der beiden Unterprogramme Media und Kultur kurz vorstellen und erste Einblicke in die einzelnen Förderungen und Programmneuerungen geben. Für diese Fokus-Sessions haben Sie sich bereits im Vorfeld angemeldet und die Zoom-Links für die jeweiligen Sessions wurden Ihnen auch schon per E-Mail zugeschickt. Wir werden die Links aber auch nochmal vor der Pause kurz im Chat einblenden, damit niemand verloren geht. Ich freue mich nun, das Wort an meine KollegInnen Susanne Schmidt aus Berlin und Marc Rettel aus Luxemburg weiterzugeben für ein Gespräch mit unseren Gästen der Europäischen Kommission. Das sind Barbara Gessler, Head of Unit für Creative Europe in der Generaldirektion Bildung, Jugend, Sport und Kultur und Lucía Recalde, Head of Unit für audiovisuelle Industrie und Mediaförderprogramme in der Generaldirektion Connect. Im Namen aller deutschsprachigen Desks sage ich jetzt schon Danke fürs Einschalten und wünsche eine spannende und informative Veranstaltung.
Ja, ganz herzlichen Dank, Carol. I'm switching now to English. Hello and welcome everybody, and especially, of course, dear Barbara, dear Lucía, it's really great to have you with us today. Especially the possibility to talk before the launch of the Creative Europe Programm is really great. So as we heard this morning from Sabine Verheyen, it will be adopted even maybe tonight or tomorrow morning. So please tell us what are the last and final steps before publication of the course we are really desperately waiting for. Who would like to be first? Maybe Barbara?
Yes, I can start. Vielleicht sage ich auch gleich noch Hallo erstmal. Das wird für mich natürlich auch was Besonderes, weil ich das jetzt auf Englisch mache. Aber das hatten wir vorher abgemacht, um noch internationaler zu sein. So I'm also switching to English now. So yes, indeed, we had this press conference this morning by the rapporteur and by the chair of the European Parliament's CULT committee, and they pushed the Commission very nicely into very soon launching the calls. This evening as of 8:30, and I think it's even going to be live, so all of you who are interested could actually switch in the parliamentary debate. They will discuss Creative Europe, and then we hope that the votes will either be done immediately or at the latest tomorrow, which means that this is the final institutional step when it comes to validating by the legislators our program. But there's still a couple of more steps. Lucía, would you like to complement this?
Well, I would like to start by apologizing for not speaking German. I think I'm really sorry for this. I promise I will try to make progress next time. So let's then turn into English. As Barbara said, we are really achieving a number of important procedural steps. Today is indeed a very important one. The next one will be the adoption of the 2021 Creative Europe Work Programme, because this is a prerequisite for us to be able to launch the calls. But the good news is that this is in the making, and we expect the work program to be adopted next week on the 26th of May. And then after then, this publication of the Creative Europe regulation in the official journal will be ready from a procedural point of view to start publicizing the calls.
So that sounds really promising. And do you think it's really realistic that we can start with the calls and everything beginning of June? But I think it looks quite good, right?
You go.
This will be the next half hour. We will constantly, Lucía and myself, want to say something. Yes, it is promising indeed, but there are a couple of bureaucratic steps, the publication, etc. You know that we are also there to promote and safeguard linguistic diversity. And linguistic diversity also always means translation. And we have heard very clearly from Mrs. Verheyen this morning that she insists that the calls will be in all the languages. So of course, we have been working until very short time ago on the linguistic, legalistically speaking, safe version of the legal base, which means that there's still a couple of things there that need to be done. But I think it's safe to say, Lucía, right, that we will be launching calls, not all of them, in the beginning of June, first week of June or something like that. Don't nail us on this.
Thank you very much for this first insights, dear Barbara, dear Lucía. I would have another question. It's not just the good news that Creative Europe keeps going, that we have a new Creative Europe program, but I would say we have a substantial budget increase for the next program. So this is, I think, a very encouraging and positive sign for the culture and creative industries in these very tough times. But at the same time, higher budget might also mean higher expectations. How do you deal with that? And how will this new increased budget be invested wisely for the next years?
I can start this time. I think indeed, Mark, you are absolutely right. It bears a big responsibility to really not only to be able to absorb and implement this big increase of the budget, but we are very confident because first and foremost, we need to address the dramatic impact of COVID in our industries. And we know that the needs are really, really high because creative and cultural and creative sectors were amongst the hardest hit by the crisis. So I think the main challenge for us will be to really use that significant increased envelope to address the recovery of the industry, but also the transformation of the industry, to address the digital transformation and the climate transformation, which are the two overriding priorities of this Commission. So we need to really strike a balance between recovery and transformation in the next 6 years and a half. Barbara?
No, I think, Lucía, you said it all. I think in the course of this conversation, we will talk about other aspects where expectations are high. And we saw it in the Slido. We know this, of course, you know, Vereinfachung, simplification, Lucía, in case you didn't understand. This is big on everybody's agenda. Accessibility, of course, is also something where expectations are high. And I think we're trying to cater for that aspect as well.
We will dig into this further on in the focus sessions, where we will also be talking about the different budgets, co-funding rates, etc. But I think this is also, as you were mentioning, Barbara, accessibility. How higher co-funding rates is, I think, one of the keys also for the new program to make it more accessible also for smaller players.
Yes, I'm looking at Lucía. Yes, indeed. In particular for culture, you know, I think we have heard the complaints, and I think it's safe to say this Germany, the country that I happen to know best, has been a lot behind this, saying, you know, we need to render the program accessible. But we have also seen, in particular in other countries, that there's very often a problem of raising own resources, and therefore we have tried now, in particular in culture, to raise the EU contribution from our side. So the necessity to kind of sell your grandmother's house, these are stories that we heard, in order to come up with the matching funds, will no longer be necessary to that extent. So really it's also the Commissioner's big concern to make it possible that organizations of all sizes will be able to engage in the program.
But if I may, Barbara, on this, I think I understand. Sorry, I couldn't follow the slide. I was watching and trying to translate. So I understand simplification is an important message, accessibility, but a message we got from the political master is also diversity, that we really need to make the program more open to perhaps groups that have not benefited much so far. So here again is one of the trade-offs that we will need to find, making the program more accessible, but at the same time widening the participation of the program to beneficiaries that for different reasons were a bit out of the scope. So again, another challenge on us to really combine and conciliate all these different objectives in the best possible format.
Thank you very much. Before going to the next part, we have been talking about increased budget, but maybe we should also mention the figures, because they're indeed very encouraging. And we heard this morning at the press conference, indeed, we are almost doubling the budget compared to the previous program that was at 1.46 billion. You correct me if I'm wrong. And we are now at almost 2.5 billion for the next 7 years for Creative Europe. So I would say, before digging into the details of the different strands, let's have a look at the overview. I'm calling out to the technical team. We did prepare a little overview about the different strands of Creative Europe.
Thank you very much. Wow, it's really great. There's a lot of possibilities, I would say. When we look at that overview, it's kind of, the menu look familiar, but of course, I think there are some really new, interesting ingredients. So what are new priorities, hidden surprises, new elements, especially in the media and culture strand? Maybe Lucía for starting.
Well, on the media strand, we clearly build on the assets of the program, what has worked well, and we have tried to improve it. So one main novelty is now the actions are clustered in 3 main clusters that, as I said, were implicit. One big cluster is content. The second one is audience, and the third is more about business transformation or a conducive business environment. Within the content cluster, the main novelty is that we'll have co-development. And again, collaboration was already there, but we decided, we also following the mandate of the co-legislators that really introduced provisions on added value, insisting on the need for greater collaboration, that the collaboration should start upstream. really a development phase. There will be also one development activity tailor-made to a certain group of countries, and this is new. Because again, for those that are a bit familiar with our jargon, it was called the level playing field, but that means simply broadening participation to countries that perhaps because of the size of their markets, their languages, they had more difficulties to access media funding. And the third main novelty when it comes to the content cluster will be that the video games action will be a bit broadened to cater for support to immersive content, because we think that this is the direction the market is heading. I will try to be a bit faster. So perhaps on the business component, two main novelties. One is that will only be implemented in 2022. We call it 360 degrees. That is a simplification action, because we are thinking primarily about beneficiaries that actually were very successful and got support from training, from market access, for diversity of grants. Now we would like to really channel all that support in one single grant. So we hope this will respond to your concerns about simplification. And here there will be a new action that we call tools, which is important in our view to really try to reap and really take advantage of the benefit of digital technologies for the benefit of the audiovisual industry. So on the audience side, there will be also a stronger focus on collaboration, for example, for VOD platforms. And when it comes to film festivals, there will be support to individual festivals, but equally support to networks of festivals. So this network component is much more prevailing than it was the case in the past. And 1 minute to say just 2 words about something we are really very, very proud is that under the cross-sectorial strand, for the first time, there will be support to news media sector. We think this is a novelty that is very much needed when we see what is happening all over Europe. And we really, there will be actions to support media literacy, journalist partnerships. We'll speak about it in a moment. And also in the cross-sectorial strand, for the first time, we'll have an action that will bring together audiovisual community and other creative sectors. And it was really about time to have a fully integrated action for all creative sectors at large.
I totally agree. So Barbara, what is new? What are new elements in the culture part of the program?
I will not go into detail right now, because I've seen that on the slides you have actually already presented the novelties, but I would like to make 1 or 2 a little bit more political points, if I may. I think the real novelty in the culture part is that for the first time, really, we will have a strong alignment of the funding with the political engagement of the European level, which means also responding to concerns that we have often heard in the past, that while the intrinsic value of culture will be very clearly recognized through the culture strand of Creative Europe, we are also opening up the doors to recognize the role of culture in its other dimensions. For example, when it comes to well-being, when it comes to health, when it comes to the overall individual, but also societal role that culture can play, and that we've seen in particular over the past year and a half during this pandemic. So I think this stronger link between where the money will go will open up new opportunities for all organizations. The scope of where organizations can actually see their project fitting in will become larger. The focus will be, you will have the opportunity to be clearer in what you want to achieve. And there as well, for example, when it comes to cooperation, we will have a priority around co-creation, obviously, clearly spelled out. This was not so much the case in the past, but also innovation. And innovation we have been maybe a little bit vague in the past there as well, but we are now very clearly saying innovation is not only a technological term, but it's also, for example, social innovation that we know that culture can bring. And Lucía mentioned it earlier, for culture very clearly also important are the idea of having cross-cutting and very important political priorities of the Commission recognized, meaning our contribution to gender equality, to inclusiveness, and to the Green Deal will have to be catered for by projects. But I think this is an opportunity. It's not an obligation, because we know that many of you already do that. And now we will have the opportunity of flagging really how you do it. And this, I think, in fine, will also help the program be even more successful.
Thanks a lot. You were mentioning one of the cross-cutting priorities that are really essential is greening, or a more sustainable approach, let's say. Isn't that quite challenging for a program that is built on transnational partnerships and networking and exchange? I guess it's kind of quite challenging for kind of this pan-European structure to reduce significantly our carbon footprint and to reduce traveling. Of course, we have to, but what are here some practical requirements you are, you are planning?
So if I start this time, we know it's difficult, but the Commission has set the objective that 30% of the funding really has to go for climate. So there is not something we can choose. It's really an obligation. We will have to do it. So at least for the media strand, we would like to follow a gradual incremental approach. And we would like to accompany some incentives in the program. So to incentivize changes before actually we introduce mandatory obligations. And we would like to couple that incentives with a lot of good practices, awareness raising activities, so that those that are really starting now can learn from those that are more advanced. But certainly it's something, it has to be clear, we cannot opt out. It's something that is here and is here to stay. For the media strand, we also think that we can do a lot on training. Training and mentoring could be a very good area to start really changing mindsets and behavior towards a more, for example, sustainable audiovisual production, more sustainable markets or festivals or exhibition sector. So that is here, as I said, is here to stay for the 7 years.
Barbara?
I think in culture, we will be a little bit broader, if I want to put it like that. We will ask all projects, I'll be very concrete, we will ask all projects to tell us how they are thinking about this, how they are reflecting upon the dimension of sustainability. In their description. We will not let anybody go out of there saying, you know, I don't care, I'm on an island, I will always have to travel via plane. So we will ask everyone to tell us how they think about this. We are also, by the way, issuing a study. We're currently looking into the mapping what already exists. So there will be also some kind of real hands-on instrument to inspire other projects, because there's already a lot going on in the sectors. But what we would like to make very clear is that while we need to contribute, as Lucía rightly says, we don't want this to lead to a new exclusiveness. The program needs to remain inclusive. And if we're looking at areas in particular, for example, like the performing arts, for example, which is very much life oriented as well. It keeps on being that, despite all the great practice that is currently out there and the artistic creation that exists. But still, obviously, there will always be a demand to be physically sur place somewhere. And there will always be, and this is an inspiration also for artists that we're trying to encourage, as you rightly said, Susanne, this is also what we preach, you know, inspire yourselves from what others do. And there's always a live element to this as well. So we will try to make sure that that the concerns are taken on board. We will try to contribute as much as possible. You think about it when you make a proposal, but that doesn't mean that if somebody says, you know, for me it's totally impossible to travel everywhere by train or to only use plastic cups in my festival. I'm giving stupid examples, I know, but that they will therefore not be selected. So there as well, we have to strike a balance between the good intentions and the obligations that we have, as Lucía said, but also not leading to new exclusions, for example, for regions that are remote and similar.
Thank you very much. Barbara, I would like to, you gave already, let's say, the big picture, and we saw the general structure of the program. Essentially, for the culture part, we have the networks, the platforms, and cooperation that are in a cross-sectorial logic, means it's really open for all the sectors to apply. However, there's also something new in cooperation. There is additionally to this first logic or first layer that is really cross-sectorial, open to all sectors, is that there is also a sectorial focus for some of the sectors. Why is that? Is this a different logic? It's complementary? And where does it come from? And where will it lead?
Where will it lead? That no. I'm of course very optimistic. There's a reason why we have introduced this. We have had, unlike media, we have only had one really sectorial action in the past, which was literary translation, and we have had a lot of dialogues with stakeholders in those particular areas that you are mentioning, in architecture, but mostly, of course, in music, in the framework of Music Moves Europe, but also we had the European Cultural Heritage Year in 2018. So we have seen that despite the general approach being very positive and very fruitful also for many of those sectors, which is based on partnerships and cooperation across borders, there is, in certain of these areas, there's a specific need to complement these more horizontal actions by a more targeted sector-oriented approach, meaning, for example, that you would like to, for example, build on more capacity for a certain area, or help the people in the sector professionalize themselves, also to tackle new challenges, etc. And this may sometimes have to be on a smaller scale and a more targeted approach, complementing the broader and really bottom-up approach that we keep via the cooperation projects. And I would like to remind you and all of you out there that the cooperation projects will continue to be the bulk of the program. So we're looking, if you think about it, for example, we had special calls under Music Moves Europe for small venues, or we're thinking about, you know, how to encourage the export of music, etc. These are very targeted things that you cannot necessarily ask a cooperation project to do, but that we would politically also like to induce based on the needs that we have identified with the sectors. So it's complementary, to cut a long story short.
Thanks. You have been mentioning architecture, which brings me to another question. We all heard about the new European Bauhaus initiative. Where might be a link between the culture and creative sectors generally, Creative Europe especially, and this initiative? We are very much involved in this initiative, obviously, because culture is obviously already there. It's already in the name, but it's much broader than this. Obviously, one of the links comes via all our support and our dialogue and the stakeholders relations we have in the architecture sector. For example, if you think about the reuse of existing architecture, rebuilding, we have a prize that already awarded, for example, architects that are doing exactly this, that are thinking in terms of sustainability, that are thinking in terms of urban development. And this is also what the Bauhaus is about. So
our clear link is via architecture in the first place, but also, of course, via the heritage sectorial approach. But I think also other cooperation projects will be able to link to that via the sustainability aspect of their projects. And we will see also over the coming years how Creative Europe can further contribute to helping this initiative, which really encompasses a much broader approach than just culture and creativity.
Thank you.
Lucía, as we saw before, Creative Europe Media is not offering support for many different sectors as we have maybe in the culture part of the program. But in media, there is support for every single part of the value chain. You already talked before that this is recipe that worked out well during the last program. So can you say something why it is still important to really start from scratch with co-creation and go along the whole chain until exhibition and distribution? I mean, you could have said maybe let's spend everything we have on distribution and visibility and audience outreach. So that would be interesting maybe.
No, I think we consider the European audiovisual industry as a very lively ecosystem. And this notion of ecosystem is a very important one, because we really need to cater for the needs of the various parts of this ecosystem that will reinforce one another. Because if we focus just on one part, very upstream, for example, and forget the distribution part, in the end, they will be not the win-win that we are actually looking for. So actually in this program, we are even trying to expand this notion of ecosystem by targeting to those parts that perhaps were a bit less covered, like the immersive content, for example, that we see that is booming and gaining in importance. We also would like, through these tool actions that I mentioned before, to try to bring a little bit the audiovisual tech community on board, because we know that one of the main challenges for the audiovisual industry is to combine actually the digital technologies and the content industries together. There are other players in the other side of Atlantic that are very good at that. I think we can improve that connection. So basically what we are trying is to widen and enrich this notion of the ecosystem. And of course, it is not just about the supply side, meaning those that produce the content, but it's also about the audiences. So I would like to say that the role that play cinema theaters, film festivals are extremely important, and this is reflected in the program as well. So not just think out those that are producing or distribution the content, think also about those that are making this content attractive, interesting for audiences across the continent.
You mentioned several times immersive ways of storytelling. So is there, are there concrete plans how to combine that with, regular audiovisual content or even with cultural content?
We are learning about those sectors that are very, very dynamic. So as part of the Media and Audiovisual Action Plan that the Commission adopted in December, we will have to set up a virtual reality, augmented reality coalition that should come with ideas by the end of this year with a strategic vision. And I think once this vision is in place, we could see how and to what extent not only the media strand, but also the cross-sectorial strand could potentially contribute to deliver this vision and implement it in practice. We're also implementing a pilot project from the European Parliament on video games that is also meant to provide a more strategic vision of video games. And I very much hope that this more strategic thinking will inform and help us fine-tune, if needed, of course, the actions that we will implement under Creative Europe. But we see also, for example, Also, and actually the potential of those sectors could go actually beyond Creative Europe, because we see a lot of potential between immersive content and education, for example. And that's also feedback we have already received. So even this idea of reaching out could actually go beyond Creative Europe to programs like Erasmus, for example, but at a later stage.
All right, thank you.
So Barbara, I would like to talk about another one of the calls you mentioned previously, the literary translation call, or that's, let's say, what it used to be. It used to be literary translation projects, and now it's going to be circulation of European literary works. Is this just a change of the name, or is there a change in the scope or in the logic of what we want to achieve with this initiative, with this call?
Yes, indeed. We're also there. I think the concern and the idea is that we're really trying to make this broader and really better reflect what we want to do with Creative Europe. We will not stop the support to individual translation. We have seen that this is important for many out there, but we would like to enlarge the scope of this action by, for example, allowing groupings of publishers and or other partners from the book sectors like libraries or booksellers to foster cooperation between publishers and their partners. And therefore, the idea is really bringing more impact on the local and national book ecosystem. So relating also to what Lucía said earlier, this is more than just a targeted approach for targeted books or targeted publishers to translate books. We would like to also, in this more sectorial concern, to achieve a bigger impact via a broader scope of this sectorial approach. So it's not gone, it's still there, but it's there's an add-on with a more structural element to it.
And with more cooperation, that's indeed kind of a revolution, because we're looking further with the impact we want to have on the book and publishing sector. Thank you.
Maybe a last question for Lucía before we switch to Slido. I think there are loads of questions already. Lucía, you mentioned before that cooperation becomes in a way more mandatory in some schemes. I had always the feeling it was central to media since its very beginning. So what brings this new obligation, or why it was necessary to have a maybe more structured partnership between different countries?
I think it's primarily the way the market is evolving. Back in 2013-14, when we started this program, the platforms were starting their activities, but the situation was very, very different. I think the COVID has been an accelerator of change. And if we want to stay relevant, if we want to preserve our cultural diversity, if we really want to keep also the IP rights in the hands of European independent producers, collaboration is simply a must, because there is no play today that has the size to compete with the big global competitors. So I think perhaps it was indeed, as you said, it was something there as well. But I think the nature, the way the market is evolving, makes it even more necessary than it was in the past. So we need also collaboration across European countries, but also across the value chain, because these big giants, they have very vertical models. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the only way to address that situation is enhancing collaboration across the value chain and across countries, and scale it up significantly.
Mark, maybe one last, and then we switch to Slido.
Very last short question to Barbara, because let's look into the future. Let's look into the crystal ball. You mentioned already the European Year of Cultural Heritage. That was a major success and achievement. We had Music Moves Europe. Currently, we're still having 2 pilot actions, opportunities, for mobility. We have Perform Europe. There's a survey in the theater sector. Seems like there's a lot going on, and this seems quite promising for the future. Can we wait for more dedicated actions, even more to come for the culture part?
Maybe not immediately, but in the medium term, that is, of course, the idea. You know, as I said before, every sectorial action was preceded by a needs analysis. Is there a gap? Is there something that we need to do further than what we are currently doing? And in the performing arts sector, as you mentioned, for example, there has been this call also from the sector, very pronounced, which is why we were able now in the last years of the last program, because we had a little bit of more budget, to launch these initiatives. And I'm really, really very excited about all of this, you know, being able to tackle theater. We will have a regular theater forum. We're doing this study on the theater situation in Europe. We're having Perform Europe in the broader performing arts sector, looking at how we can stimulate the circulation of works. All of this, bearing in mind that performing arts is already the biggest beneficiary of cultural support, by the way, under cooperation, for example, but going beyond and seeing if there's things that currently we cannot fund or that don't come from the sector itself as a project that we would need to develop. So yes, there clearly. And one good example is Opportunus. You know, there was a call years ago from several culture ministers saying we need the Erasmus for the artists. You will all, some of you, the older ones, will remember this call. And when we finally had the money and the opportunity to do it, we turned it into a pilot, and this pilot will now become part of the horizontal actions of Creative Europe Culture. So this is something where we have seen that based on a very good pilot activity, which works wonderfully and meets a need, this can be turned into an action under Creative Europe, which makes a lot of sense. So this is how we work, and therefore I'm fairly confident that even maybe not immediately, maybe not even in this generation of programs, but at the latest for the next generation of programs, we will probably have more targeted sectorial approach.
Okay, thank you very much for these first insights and this first round of exchanges. And now let's head over to the questions, the Q&A session.
All right, so what we have, 30% goes to climate, means to new ways of production or to projects which address this topic or both. Maybe Lucía first.
The answer is crystal clear. Artistic freedom is the main principle. We will never interfere in the creative side. So no, what we are speaking here is as a gradual development process whereby we would like slowly to contribute to this overarching target. Perhaps I didn't express myself clearly enough, the 30% reduction on CO2 emissions. So we need to think about new ways of production. We'll stimulate that change, but we will never interfere in the content.
Can I compliment Lucía? You know, all the European programs are asked to contribute. All of the European, no matter if you look at Erasmus, Horizon, whatever, everybody needs to contribute to this percentage, to this goal. And we have made very clear that we are not per se an environmental program. So as Lucía says, our focus is different, but we need to contribute. So this we hope makes it clearer.
And I think there are already a number of projects that are moving in this direction without waiting for Creative Europe to tell them how to go about it. We know about many markets remember Berlinale, last time we were there, the well-read number of pledges and announcements that were made to move down this line. So I'm very confident because I know that the industry is not waiting for Creative Europe to start taking action in this super important topic.
Thank you very much for these answers to the first question. Let's go to the second one that has been voted up quite high. So people are very interested in the co-funding rates. How high has to be the own co-funding? Will there be any difference for smaller organizations? And can the co-funding from the European side be up to 100%?
Very clearly not. There's always the necessity for us to have co-funding. And it's important that the way you phrase this question is very important. We will raise under culture the co-funding rate for small projects, not for small organizations. We are looking at the project which consists of partners that are made of maybe smaller organizations, but also maybe larger with smaller partners, for example. So we're looking at the project size, and there indeed we will go up to 80% of co-funding. That's an enormous increase. So if you make the calculation, you just need to bring in 20% from your own resources. And that, I think, is really a considerable increase. We're also introducing, you will see that later, a medium range cooperation size, where we will have also a 70% co-funding rate, and we will even go up for the very large cooperation projects to a 60%. So we're increasing our own, which is I'm saying it's the taxpayers' money, yours as well, that will go into the EU funding rate, which means that on the other side, you need to bring less. And I think, so it's not 100%. We always want to also have the triggering effect, and we also want to have the engagement of other sources. You know, we're not talking about private sources here, but also other public funding, for example. So let's not, just say this is Europe who will do it. This link between the two remains very strong, and this is the idea of co-funding in general.
Lucía, do you want to add something?
No, I think Barbara said it all very eloquently.
Okay, all right. There's a lot of interest for the new action tours, but I guess we will skip it for the moment and coming back to that later, because you will have your short presentation and I guess some answers will be given then. So what's new in diversity would be the next one.
Well, the approach will be much more ambitious and much more broad encompassing, because until now, primarily we're focused, speaking about the media strand, about gender diversity. And now we are taking a much more holistic view of diversity and inclusiveness altogether. So I think that's the first element, that the way we interpret diversity is broader than it used to be. And also, this was a very important priority, especially for the European Parliament. So we need to really take action. So you will see that I'm sure you will comment on that later on today. But for some media actions, we will already be asking the potential beneficiaries to tell us, what do you plan to do to address diversity in your company? And of course, the response could be very multifaceted. Could be something behind the camera in the structure of the company, could be something in front of the camera, could be something in terms of the audience's reach to bring more diversity when it comes to the public. And that's exactly the feedback that we would like to get in this first place, so that on the basis of what we know that the beneficiaries are already doing, we could take more well-informed decisions, disseminate good practices, shed light on what is already happening there. But in a nutshell, is that we have to do more. And the approach, as I said, it's broader than it used to be. And for your information, we will launch a campaign, diversity campaign very, very soon, possibly in Cannes, this one specifically targeting the audiovisual sector. and gender in particular, but it's not only for gender, although we start from there.
All right, thank you.
So let's look at the next question. A question we cannot ignore, voted for 33 times already. What are approximate dates for the next deadlines, for the next upcoming calls? Can you give us a little insight on the time frame?
I will start because we have fewer calls, obviously. As soon as we can, as we said before, as you said, Mark and Susanne, as soon as we can, we will launch the calls. The agency will launch the calls, which we will see around the beginning of June. I'm not carving this in stone at the moment. And then we will have, of course, to have a balance between a large extended deadline for all of those that are saying, oh, wow, you know, there's money, Geld, Förderung, that was set in the Slido. We need to prepare something, so we need a little bit of time. And then there are, of course, the usual habitués that are already very good partners and have established practice of working together. So there needs to be a very good balance in these deadlines. And then, of course, it's also a very special year because we, you know, I mean, Lucía will say something about that. There's so many calls. So in our case, we will, for the calls that we have, we will launch them as quickly as possible, as we said. And there may be, of course, a difference. We're already not in the usual agenda as we were in the usual timeline as before. There may be, of course, a period where, you know, we are not doing exactly the same timing as we did before because we had to start everything later in the year. But let me also use the opportunity to say that at the same time, we're already working on our annual work program for 2022. And for all of those that say, oh my God, you know, I'm not going to make it, whatever the deadline, it's going to be too quick. There's going to be fairly soon the new program for 2022. And there again, the good news is that we will also have a high budget. As Lucía said in the beginning, we will put a lot of money in the beginning. So there's no need to panic if you don't succeed now or if you're not ready. Then you know, there will be fairly soon new opportunities.
So I think we can take one last question before we come to the second part, the focus on Innovation Lab and news media partnerships. So the question is, where would a project joining games, theater, VR, opera, or film architecture, and so forth apply for? So you know, it's maybe the question, is it more maybe in the culture strand, cooperation projects, or will it be possible to apply that type of really interdisciplinary projects also in the media strand? Maybe very short, because we come to your presentation, Lucía.
So in the media strand, that kind of projects are not eligible because clearly said media strand is for the audiovisual industry, defined in broad terms, but audiovisual industry. The kind of project that Christine mentioned here, this is exactly what the reason why we have now this Creative Innovation Lab under the cross-sectorial strand, because we couldn't before actually provide for that kind of cross-fertilization between different creative industries. In culture, they have, I think, a broader scope, but on media is audiovisual and nothing else. So it's very difficult to bring other sectors on board. So part of the answer to that question would be under this new action that we will present in a moment.
But Barbara, would you like to comment maybe what is possible?
Just as a very short compliment. Obviously, you know, we're already funding a lot of projects where on stage in an opera there's an audiovisual element, where there's gaming. If you look at theatrical practice at the moment, there's a lot of interactivity as well, and that of course is also part of the innovation aspect that I mentioned earlier. So it's not, of course, excluded. it's rather the other way around to have the purely media-oriented support for this kind of project. I think in our case, there's already this kind of connectivity, and interdisciplinary is already a reality in many of our projects, and we will be able to continue supporting this.
Thanks a lot, Barbara. So we are coming to the next part of our session. We throw 3 spotlights on Innovation Lab, news media concept, and the partnerships with Marianne Duvenstein. So dear Barbara, thanks a lot for having joined us, and please stay if you have the time to. And I have the pleasure to give the floor back to Lucía, and we will, have a look at those 3 spotlights, and then afterwards we have again a Slido session. So please go ahead.
So first of all, I think Barbara should stay for that part of the presentation, because even if I'm making the presentation, the most important message for all of you is that this Creative Innovation Lab is really a joint endeavor that we are implementing together in EAC and in Connect all together. So even if we are formally in the lead, the first important message is that next time Barbara will make the presentation, we are doing this together, because we need to walk the talk. And the only way to convince you about the value of working together is we show that we are doing the same in the Commission. So that is by way of introduction. You have a very colorful presentation, very short, by the way. So if we start, it's just to give you a snapshot about this entirely new action. And I think every single word of this title matters, and I will explain you why in a moment. So let me see, I don't know if I can handle the presentation myself, or you can do it. If you can move to the next page, please. So this is the first message. These creative innovation labs are about cross-sectorial collaboration. Collaboration in a way perhaps that we haven't tested before, because Barbara is right that there is an element of multidisciplinarity in the cultural strand already, but we want to take it to the next level. And we would like also the audiovisual part that is nested under the media strand to be a full player of this cross-sectorial collaboration. So I think that's the important message here. It's really about blending, about bringing together creative sectors in a way that has not been tested before. And we know that this cross-sectoral collaboration, as I said, has a lot of potential. We have reports from UNESCO, from the OECD, saying that now the boundaries between different creative industries because of the tech developments are becoming more and more blurred. And that therefore we should not be seeing this as a threat to what we know, but it's an opportunity to actually develop new forms of content, new ways of engaging with the audiences, and new business models. So, and if we move to the next slide, please. So what is also very important about this action is that we want to give you the space you need to experiment, to test out new ideas, to do the things for which usually it's very difficult to find money, because it doesn't fit in the usual national funding schemes or regional funding schemes, because is too new, is a bit tech, is not content. So this is your place. And if you really want to do a very well-established action that has proved its value, this is not the place. Here, innovation will be rewarded. That is what the title is for. When we refer about innovation labs, is that idea that we really want to give you as much space as possible to try out things that have not been tested before. So we will really encourage you to be as creative as you can be. And as Barbara said before, we are not speaking about technological innovation here. We are speaking about people-driven innovation, an innovation that is going to translate in new types of content, possible new business model, We are thinking about new models of remuneration. We are thinking about new models of management of IP, where we see that there are a lot of challenges and opportunities if different sectors work together. But we are also thinking about new ways of engaging with the audiences, especially the youngest audience. So that's something where we would like you to explore. And here, technologies and data is an enabler. This is not an horizon type of program under the European Union. The focus here is not to develop a new type of technology, is to apply technologies for the sake of content and business model. This is very important. The focus is not on the technology per se. Technology is the enabler that is going actually to help you develop new types of, or experiment, especially on content. And last but certainly not least, we think that this action can be actually a very powerful action to address something that we have mentioned before, this digital and climate transformation, because it's through the power of collaboration among creative sectors that we think we can see innovation, for example, in addressing environmental challenges that are common from different creative industries. So I will end up this very short introduction by saying, I wouldn't say the sky is the limit, because the limit is our EU financial regulation, but certainly that we will encourage you to that creativeness, inventiveness, crazy ideas will be certainly rewarded in this action. So I know that I'm very mindful of the time, because Susanne and Mark told me that I shouldn't be too long. And I think we will also be good to have questions from you.
Wow, that sounds really promising. And I think we all are looking forward to really interesting, innovative projects coming up and on our tables. So yeah, let's move on to the news media. Exactly.
So thank you very much, Lucía. We hand over the floor to Marijn Dufsteen, who will introduce one of the first support schemes to be launched for news media partnerships. Marijn, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello everyone. Can you hear me well? All right, good. I don't know how many people in the audience are involved in news media. It's not easy to see. There are many people there, but I'll just give the information, and I'm curious to hear from you afterwards. Journalism partnerships. This is one of the actions that we will support under Creative Europe. I'll first introduce briefly what it is all about. Obviously, news media support is new. And the question is, of course, why do we do it? And then how do we do it? The news media, well, first of all, news media is a creative sector. This is not clear to everyone, but we consider it a creative sector. And so far, it was not covered under Creative Europe, but the context now is such that it needs to be covered, because news media faces a lot of challenges, like audiovisual and like the cultural challenges. I'll come to the slide in a minute, but I'll first explain what we aim to achieve. The logic of Creative Europe is, of course, to safeguard diversity and to foster the competitiveness of the creative sectors. And the same logic will apply here to news media. We want to safeguard diversity, and we want to strengthen the competitiveness of the news media sectors. This is done through multiple actions. This will come gradually over the next few years. And the first action, the first call for proposals that is launched this year is called Journalism Partnerships. So I will talk now about the journalism partnerships. What do they aim to achieve? You see it here on the slides. They aim to achieve sector-wide cross-border collaboration. This is something you know, you've seen it in the culture strand, also in the media strand, and the journalism partnerships go a bit further even. They really aim to achieve sector-wide collaboration. The applicants can, of course, not do everything. So they can focus on a certain subsector. And with subsector, this is a free interpretation. They can interpret this as, for instance, written press, audiovisual press, visual news, public interest news, local news, or maybe community media, regional media, data journalism, investigative journalism. There are a lot of subsectors, and we've seen that in some of those subsectors, there are more and more collaborations happening, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes because the news media really understands that collaboration is the way forward. Then what we ask them to do is to have a diverse consortium. Diverse meaning from different countries, but also different types of players, to share best practices. I think this is the key word. You've heard it from us multiple times in most of the programs we launch. It's all about sharing of best practices. And then to do what? Well, to address the structural challenges. The challenges are competitiveness, but also media pluralism, and the applicants can add challenges they see in the subsectors. So it's up to the applicants to provide a needs analysis. This also gives a good range of freedom for them, because it means they can propose, for instance, training, they can propose events, they can propose working on collaborative standards. It's their choice, as long as they have a good needs analysis. If they have a convincing argument why something is absolutely needed in a certain subsector, and they can prove this with a needs analysis, then they can choose the activity of their choice, and the evaluators will evaluate on this basis. And then very importantly, similar to what you are used from us, we obviously always respect artistic freedom, and also for the news media, we will have this same principle. We will respect the editorial freedom. There will also even be a separate annex to the grant agreement to ensure that there will be no meddling with the editorial independence. Next slide, please. Then a little bit more details. There are two priorities for us. And again, we leave it open to the applicants to see what is, to propose what is most needed. They can focus on one or on both of those priorities. But as you see, we consider business a priority and collaboration between journalists. So on the business side, there are huge challenges similar to audiovisual. There are massive challenges ahead. And the news media business needs to think how to survive in the future, how to become more resilient, how to come up with new business models, thriving from all kinds of remuneration, how to do business standards. Sometimes that can involve technical standards, as long as this is, of course, not Horizon Europe. It's similar to media. We will promote the testing of new technical standards, but it should not be only IT development. It should be really practical, hands-on work to see what works best. It could also be trainings for media business professionals, as long as the aim is to uphold the viability of journalistic content. The second priority for us is collaborative cross-border journalism. And there again, it could be all kinds of new formats. It could be the development of standards, in this case, editorial standards. There is a wide necessity of editorial standards. The journalists in the audience will know. And again, the exchange of best practices through all kinds of activities such as events, training, co-funding, grant giving, as long as the aim is to uphold the quality and diversity of journalism in Europe. The next slide. Then practically, we will launch yearly calls for 2-year projects. The first call is, of course, a bit delayed. As you know, we were facing considerable delays for all Creative Europe calls, and the same applies here. It will be launched hopefully on the 1st of June, so that's in 2 weeks, and it will be open until the 26th of August with a budget of 7.6 million. At this stage, we don't indicate how many projects we want to finance for that amount. we will indicate that it will be at least 4 projects. So you can imagine that it's not 2 and it's not 20, but we don't want to be too restrictive. The co-financing is 80%, and then this call will be repeated every year. The second call will be launched by the end of 2021 with a deadline in 2022. There are also other actions apart from this journalism partnerships, but I don't think that is for now. For instance, next year there will also be calls for media literacy projects. And there are other more specialized calls with smaller budgets. But this year, this is the first call. And if you have questions about that, then you can address your local Creative Europe desk. Of course, also for the desks, this is new. So they are discussing whether the media desk or the culture desk takes part. Anyway, you can contact either of them and they will make sure that you reach the right person. And then together, if questions remain, you can write to this dedicated, lovely, long email address, which has been created for specific questions on this call. And I'm available, of course. Thank you.
Okay, Marijn, thanks a lot. I'm sure there are a lot of questions in Slido. We go back to the Slido channel and we'll take some of them. Relationship between artistic research and applied applications suitable for the call is the first question. Marijn, could you answer
it's for
that?
Lucía, but Lucía, you're muted.
Lucía?
Muted, yes.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly know what is meant by artistic research. What I would like to say is this is not for research per se, this action of Creative Innovation Lab. There is one big project with many millions of euros, which is the Horizon Europe with a budget, I think can't remember exactly, 90 billion euros that will cater for research per se. So here it's more, we are moving on the applied side. And as I said, the technology is not the objective of this call, it's a tool to achieve a given result. Is what I said before, the enabling element. But it is not about a research. We would like in this call to take a sort of problem-solving approach. For example, I'm just inventing for the sake of it. If we imagine some problems related to IP management, for example, that we have, or you have identified that, for example, again, I'm inventing just for the sake of illustration, that in the music sector, there is already some practices there, and you would like to see whether this approach could work in other disciplines. That's the kind, and you would like to test some sort of technologies that can help in implementing this approach. That is the thinking behind it. Imagine the greening, because this is a common challenge for all creative industries. Can you think about solutions? So that's the approach. And I see now, if you allow me, Susanne, and I'm really spoiling your work as moderator, I see that here said that innovative ideas come from small players. That would be good to bring a diversity of partners in these partnerships, because you could have those that have the ideas but don't have the scale to implement it, and those actually that have the scale and the size to implement those ideas. So I think perhaps in this call, we will see a different kind of partnerships from the one we have seen in the past. And I personally believe that will be a good approach, because I would tend to agree with this person that it is true that many times that more creative ideas don't happen in big organizations, happen in a small. So the challenge will be to bring those creative powerhouses that have the ideas with the most established partners that have the bones and the flesh to implement them.
Thank you very much, Lucía. Maybe we keep going with the same question you mentioned already at the beginning of it. It was asking about the requirements. What are the requirements? We know that normally you have to be active in the culture and creative sectors. You have to prove for the culture part, at least, that you're active generally. What are the requirements to participate in these creative innovation labs?
Well, the requirements will be a bit similar in that it has to be organizations that are already active in the field. So there has to be, this is what I have just said, that it's not just fresh organizations. You need to have organizations that are already recognized as being active in this field. But I think the composition of the partnership, I keep saying that could be interesting to really bring those innovations forward. The countries that should be involved, I think this is something you might know better than me. I don't know in the end whether this 4 countries. I would need to double check the figures.
Okay, it might be also applied to the journalism partnerships. How many partners or countries should be involved at a minimum level?
Yeah, I'll reply for the journalism partnerships there. It's a dual answer because there will need to be at least 3 partners from 3 countries participating in Creative Europe, but they should together cover a significant part of Europe. So there could be 3 partners, but there needs to be many more countries covered because the idea is to serve the wider community. I also saw a question on which type of news media are eligible. I think it said private media, newspapers, private TV, Instagram channels. Yes, we will not be restrictive there. We will leave it open. It is open to organizations active in news media, and it can also even involve NGOs and training institutes and media associations, as long as they together can cover this objective of covering a significant part of the subsector. And then there was a question, how many partnerships will be funded? Well, it's, as I said, we will give a hint that it will be at least 4, meaning not 2 and not 20. And we hope that this hint suffices.
Thank you for these details. Let's go back to Creative Innovation Lab. We have a question about what are the figures here? Up to how many % and total euros can be applied here? And what about the track record of the applying company?
So here is 3 legal entities from at least 2 countries that participate in Creative Europe. So that is the requirements, and the total budget I think is 8. I need to double check. I have to tell you the figures. Is 8-point-something million, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm sure that Susanne or Mark, you know this better than me. The very final figures.
In some papers here, but I think
it's 8 points. I think, I don't know, because we were running the figures until the very last moment, but it's roughly speaking 8 million, between 8 and 9 million euros.
All right, thanks a lot, Lucía. I think we can maybe take one more. Time is really flying. So maybe we take one for Marijn. I just try to translate. Yeah, so it's mainly about the different sectors we have, or the different types of private radio, private TV, or online news, Instagram. I remember you mentioned before that it's basically the whole variety of different media. So can you maybe a little bit specify?
Yeah, actually, I think I answered that question, but I saw 2 other questions coming in, so I'll just bundle it in one. So yes, private radio, private TV, online newspapers, Instagram channels, they are all eligible. We won't be restrictive. But I see two other channels saying, this last one, for instance, saying broadening participation was key in the new program. Does this also apply to journalism partnerships? Yes, it does. And the question before that said, is this for the big players only? No, it's not. It's clear that we need sector-wide collaboration, but even if big players are involved, it will be essential that this serves the wider community. So yes, we need associations and we need big collaborations, but that should serve all the small players. And how this is done, that is to be defined by the partnerships. But if big players come with something that only serves the big players, this is not fulfilling the objective. And yes, the journalism partnership is primarily focused on news, indeed, yeah, on the democratic debate.
Thank you very much for these clarifications. Unfortunately, we're really running out of time, so we have to come to an end of this Q&A session. And I would like to thank once more our three guest speakers, Barbara Gessler, Lucía Recalde, Marijn Deuvenstein. Thank you very much, and I'll pass over to Susanne.
Yes, thanks a lot also from my side. Dear three of you, it was really great to have some news and some details. And I guess we all keep fingers crossed for tomorrow morning for the final vote of the parliament. And then, of course, we very much hope that the calls are coming out, beginning of June. And yeah, I now have the pleasure to give back to my dear colleague, Lea Stöver, who will exactly explain what happened next and how we get to the different focus sessions. So have a nice day. Thanks a lot, and see you soon, I hope.
I think we should be the ones thanking you and thanking the desk from Austria, Luxembourg, and Germany for this excellent initiative you have taken. I wish we could see more of that kind of initiative across the continent. So thank you very much for inviting us, at least. I was delighted to be here with you today.
Barbara, switch on your phone. Yeah, okay.
I was saying same here, and of course it would be nice to meet in person in the not so far away future. Thanks a lot for everything. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.